Rod. How's that? How is it? Oh, good. Yay. Clear signal. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good morning, dear friends. You showed up despite the day. My garden was saying, how could you possibly leave today? But we have the party to have, so why would I miss it? So I'm really grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm beholden to you and grateful for this role existing because of its incredibly nurturing capacity for me. Who's here for the first time today? Please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Well, great. I hope it turns out to be life transforming for you this morning. And if you are obviously on a quest to find a spiritual home. And if this isn't it, I encourage you to stay enthusiastic, because here in Portland there are incredible communities of every stripe, and you can find a place that fits you. Wonderfully, remarkably, what an amazing thing. So we begin with taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, which, which I like to think of not so much as refuge in a person who walked the earth 2,600 years ago. That doesn't help much, right? He's pretty long gone. But refuge in that aspect of our being which is awake. That which, in this moment, we take it so for granted, we can't see, we're like fish in water. What do you mean water? But right now, there's knowing that I'm here through awareness. And that awareness is the doorway to freedom. And it's, we take it very for granted, but it can be developed remarkably, and that's really all the Buddha did, was develop his own consciousness till he realized what was real. And then he figured out how to teach that and pass it down over the generations. Remarkable technology of consciousness. So refuge in the Buddha, and then with that quality of consciousness which is awake, which is really capable of focusing, we examine what exists, the Dharma. And there's a huge relief in that for me, because it means that the meditation practice is about observing really scientifically, objectively, what my experience is of this moment. It isn't about having some particular other experience. It isn't about changing this moment. It's about waking up, oh, this is how it is right now. This is really how it is. And then the Sangha is a word for community, and we have our little community here, and it's wonderful to have a place to come to and a community to be part of. And in its deeper form, however, I think of Sangha as the community of life. That we're the cambium layer on the earth right now, and we and the orangutans and the wolves and the bacteria, we are life, and that's our home. So that's what the refuges are about as I think of them. I sounded Canadian for a moment. Maybe just more than one moment. So let's see. Is that okay? This is awkward. Had some difficult guitar news recently, which is that I've been finger picking with the wrong fingers. How do you undo bad habits? It sucks. I'm doing the bad habit right now. So please join in as you wish and as it makes sense. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Sangha, I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Once more from the top. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Our schedule today will now do sitting practice for about half an hour with some little guidance. And then Jim Dalton will lead us in some movement, and then I'll come back and give a talk. And in the middle there, Avi will do some announcements and invitations. And today I'm going to be focusing on pain. Pain in its rich variety of manifestations, and particularly how to work with our pain so that we can live more happily, more freely, more joyfully, and with much less suffering. So that's our itinerary. And in keeping with that, a couple of the guidance pieces I'll give you in the next half hour have to do with finding some discomfort or pain in your body. So, whoops, this is too close. Let's sit comfortably upright. Much has been made of the fact of sitting cross-legged and in a full lotus. The Buddha sat like that because he was from a small village in North India, and that's how people sat. If he came from Bolivia or many Central and South American countries, the statues would all have him squatting. So please sit comfortably upright. If you're being tortured by your posture, find a better one. Please notice that there's a body sitting here and that it's touching the chair. Notice where in this body awareness can connect with life, with sensations. Where is there coolness in this body? Where is there warmth? Notice that there is aliveness in your fingers, in your face. Where is there in this body which is not particularly alive to you, that you can't feel? One of our central points of connection with all of life is in the fact of breathing. So we can use the sensations of the breath in the body, the actual movement of the bones and the tissues, as a sort of home base. There's nothing to imagine. It's actually coming into contact with reality in the present moment. It's a challenging thing to stay awake in the present, to stay with the breath. The mind is very habituated to going off into fantasy, into the past, into the future, imagining this, imagining that. Many people become disappointed and don't continue to meditate because they have the misunderstanding that they should be able to stop the mind, and that success means stopping the mind. Success is actually staying put, realizing how much of the time the mind is lost in fantasy, in opinion, in stories, in emotions. Each moment of awakening to this trance state is a moment of freedom, a moment of awakening. So when you can, when you notice the mind has been wandering and then awakened to itself, simply come back to your body, sitting here, and to the sensations of your breath, breathing itself. Quite wonderfully, there's nothing to figure out. There's no problem to solve. There's really no attainment to have either. There's just the opportunity to be alive, right here, right now. In the absolute midst of life. we bring to our meditation practice our entire person costume, our personality. And a great percentage, but maybe almost everybody in the West, brings to it a kind of violence, a kind of demand for the mind to be quiet, calm, concentrated, content. And so it makes practice doubly difficult. Much wiser to bring a sense of love and compassion and mercy. There's a simile from the Buddha about training the mind, especially at the start, that it's like training an elephant. The way they did it was to drive a strong, deep post in the ground and then put a chain to one of the elephant's front legs. If you made the chain too long, the elephant could gather momentum and disappear, tear everything apart and disappear. If you made it too short, there wasn't room to move, and the elephant would freak out. Same with us. Another simile was, it's like tuning an instrument. It's too loose, it doesn't sound good. Too tight, it's sharp. It could break a string, it doesn't sound good. But somewhere in between, there's just the right tuning. And so we practice the art of tuning our own consciousness. And coming home to the actual sensations of breathing and the body sitting here. We can notice that each breath has a beginning. It doesn't exist, and then it comes out of nowhere. It begins. It then extends over time, rising, until it changes direction. And then it declines and then disappears. So we notice the sensations. We also notice this truth of things beginning and ending. The wandering mind offers the same teaching. Thoughts think themselves into being and then they disappear. Sitting still like this, it's not something we commonly do. We tend to move a lot. We move away from discomfort toward comfort. An itch comes along, we scratch it. There's an ache somewhere, we stretch it. We change the posture. In a certain way, we could say we are in constant flight away from discomfort and toward comfort, toward pleasure. This is not the way to freedom. On the path to freedom, we learn to bear that which was previously unbearable. To discover that pain is inherent in our moment-to-moment life, and that suffering is highly variable. Then we can examine, where does the suffering come from? So please notice somewhere in your body that is unpleasant in its sensation nature. Notice this pain or discomfort quite clearly, and then turn your awareness toward it. Become curious. Each breath has a beginning. It has a rising to fullness and an ending. in addition to physical pain, there's the pain of experiencing inner states which are unpleasant. Notable among them are wanting something that you're not getting. I want this. Or disliking something that you are experiencing, resisting an unpleasant experience. And there's the restless mind and body. A mind and body that are used to activity, and you're containing it, and there's a kind of frustration in that. There's a kind of pain in that. Or if you're intending to stay awake and the mind is drifting off all the time and close to falling asleep. And there's the pain of doubt, not believing in what you're doing, or not believing in yourself that you can do it, or the practice. And then there's the pain of the afflictive emotions, the despair, the depression, the fear, loneliness, jealousy. This is the time in our lives as we mature spiritually where we cease running from these states. When in fact we turn toward them. Completely counterintuitive, counter-mammalian. And so coming home to breathing, just this breath. Just this one right now. What would refuge in the Buddha mean right now? Being awake to this Dharma, to this truth. What are the sensations that are present in the body? What's the quality of mind? What are the contents of mind? Is there acceptance of things as they are, or is there a tension, a pain somewhere? I want it to be different. I refuse or cannot accept what exists right now. Please once again become aware of where the body touches the cushion or the floor. Notice how remarkably alive, how beautifully alive this vehicle for a lifetime is. Awareness and the sensations in the face, in the hands, in the feet. And let awareness come into that region of the universe which you think of as your eyes. I notice how it is to let those eyes roll around in their beautifully lubricated sockets, their orbit. Looking up and down and to the side and maybe circling the eyes. And then noticing the intention in the mind to allow the eyes to open, and then let them open. Do the work of opening your eyes. But in this instance, be aware of what happens when you do. When seeing suddenly blossoms, seeing occurs. Seeing and knowing it. Seeing. The objects of seeing are not what we're observing. When we observe seeing, we're observing the fact of seeing. And then notice if your body has some tension that it might like to stretch. There's a kind of discomfort, isn't there? But then we're designed to know how to release that. So give yourself a few moments to very mindfully stretch. Hello, dear friends out on the internet, on your computers and TVs. Lovely of you to join us. So, Mr. Dalton, want to give him a workout, a mindful workout? I will get this out of your way. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, in touch with our feet. Rock back and forth. Stiff-legged rocking is a little jarring to the body. And then smooth it out. Turn the hips and let the arms swing a little bit. After sitting, there's a great relief and flowing. Then coming to stillness. Sink into the knees, let the arms float up. A different kind of flowing, up and down. What are all the muscles cooperating in this simple flow? Letting the wrists kind of lead up and let the heel of the hand lead down. Down. And then we'll add to this lifting, opening. Coming back to the center and sinking again. Something's happening with this microphone. So what's the mood of the chest when it opens like this? It's opening to the next instant. Curious. And then returning, getting in touch with the earth, then curious about a little journey outward. A little journey upward. Paint a rainbow while we're here. Reaching up, separating clouds. We sink, cross the wrists, come up the center. Feel the shoulder blades. When you stretch out to the side, the shoulder blades come together. When you reach for the center line, the shoulder blades spread apart. So we're giving ourselves a little massage in the upper back. And we call it separating clouds, but it's a gift to our spine and our rib cage. Then opening to the side, we stretch back with one hip and pull forward with the other hip, following that flow around the center line of the axis of the body. There's a still column around which everything revolves. In order to have movement, there has to be axis. And then rolling the shoulders all the way around as far as is comfortable. No pain. And again, there's a point of stillness right in the center of the joint, around which all the rest of the movement organizes. And then lifting is a journey upward. And then a release down. What's the mood? Moving up. What's the mood? Releasing. Then turning to gaze at the moon, we release the arms down and resist gravity up here and release. It's much easier to let go of movement than ideas. Does this idea serve me anymore? No. Release it. Press across. And reach across, focusing on the palm of the hand, the other palm towards the earth. Come across the midline. Release. New idea. The cloud's moving this way. Release. Cloud's not attached to the shadow. It's just in resonance with it. Resonating together. Releasing. Releasing both arms. Stepping out. Splashing in the sea. Rocking back and opening the arms. Lifting the toe. Feeling the toe engage. Release. Engage. Release. Ride the waves. Open the arms, palms up. And back to the center. I took my workshop outside yesterday on a stone patio. I couldn't hear the floor creak. But then when I looked up, all the trees were moving with us. Ride the waves. Open to the side. And back to the center. So like the fish in the water that don't know what the water is, we're swimming in chi, but we can swim up here, and swim up here. And then spread our wings. Let the chi lift us up lift the heels off the floor. Turn the wheel. Reverse. And come back to the center. Now it's a little hard to find the axis of stillness here, but lift one arm and one leg. Look at all those combinations. And then this one's easier. Rising, releasing. Refreshing all the cells of the body, releasing all the toxins down into the earth. Full cleansing breath. And now coming to stillness. There's still tiny little adjustments happening all through the body. Body's always searching for a more comfortable space. But this is our space. Each of us occupies this precious space where the energy of the earth flows up the back of the body and releases down the front. The upswing, revealing the dignity and the poise of this space that we occupy. An inherent dignity, inherent poise. No one gives us this. We are this. No one can take it away. As we breathe in, we feel that poise. As we breathe out, we smile. What makes us smile? Gifts we've received, gifts we've given, connections we've made. So, sinking once more and opening to the side, gathering all of our experience of the morning so far. Once more. Bringing your hands together in gratitude. Thank you for coming together with me.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, Sangha. Oh, I don't know about you, but I find this whole daylight savings thing a little bit jarring. My watch, I know most people don't wear watches anymore unless you're wearing a Fitbit. This is just a watch. But my watch says 10 o'clock. A Fitbit probably has the right time, but my watch says 10 o'clock. Don't know what to do with that, but hey. It's still now, right? It's still the present moment. Even though it seems like an hour ago, the present moment. I don't know what to do with that. Today is the potluck. Yay. So thank you for all of your top secret family recipes and the top secret way in which you defrost things from Trader Joe's and and the top secret chips that you like to bring to potlucks. Thank you very much. That will be after the Dharma talk today. If you liked what Jim did today, you get a chance to have 4 hours of Jim next Saturday on the 17th, 10 to 2 p.m. Details are on the website. Please sign up. Also, end of the month, 31st, Kate and Christine are going to be doing a half-day women's retreat. Details are on the website. On April 14th, please save the date, Robert and Doug are doing a day-long workshop on love and compassion practices, and details on that are forthcoming. Then on April 7th through the 8th, Robert is having his Seattle retreat. And there is a Sangha member up there in Seattle who has offered to house some people from Portland. I don't think all of you, but I think some of you, if you're interested. So if you're interested, save me and I'll or connect with me, and I will connect you and them. And then finally, starting on April 5th, Basics of Mindfulness class, the new version of that class with Doug for 6 weeks from 6 to 7:30. Details are on the website. For general stuff, who is doing Dharma consults today? Anyone doing Dharma consults? Jim is doing Dharma consults. What is a Dharma consult, you might ask? Well, if you have a practice and things have come up, talk to Jim. He'd be happy to talk with you about it. If you're looking for a quick on-ramp to starting a practice, talk to Jim. He would be happy to talk with you about it. There is a sign-up sheet there by the door. There are 3 slots starting at 10 after 12. During hospitality. And for hospitality, we can always use some extra people to help clean up and help serve. Then let's see. If you wish to engage in this community at a deeper level and take what you're learning in your practice off the cushion and into the community and use it in connection with other people who are also taking what they're doing off the cushion and bringing it into community, please join us and volunteer. It is a great way to have fun and to meet people here, which is, of course, the most important thing. And you can see Kirsten, she of the raised hand over there. She would be happy to guide you into that. If she's busy, you can see me, and I will pass your name on to her. In addition to actually physically volunteering, another way that you can help us is to like us on Facebook and Yelp and Google and put in some great reviews, truthful reviews. Don't have to lie. Just tell us what you think. It does help people who are looking through and are deciding a place to go. And at the same time, whenever we post events on the Facebook page or on the website, feel free to spread those events out to communities that you might be networked with if it's appropriate and you think that there's people who would be receptive to what we do. I'm still looking for somebody who can carpool from Vancouver. I have a Sangha member up there named Peter. Still looking. Still looking for a Sangha member who's a lawyer who might be willing to review our contracts for our tenants to make sure that that everything, that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. If you want to make a connection with other Sangha members who are doing practice on their own, we have a series of KM or spiritual friends groups. There's a list of those on the website. If you want to start one or if you want to join one, please see me. And then to remind you about our transition project, which is over here. If you will bring in things that are in good repair that you don't need, Michael brings these things to the Transitions Project, which helps homeless people transition out of homelessness into a stable place in their lives. We've been doing this for quite some time and have helped quite a lot of people in Portland. Speaking of homelessness and pain, I was reflecting on what Robert said during the meditation, and I just wanted to share something with you. There was an incident that happened not too long ago. There was a van that was parked in our parking strip for days at a time, and it was clear that this person was living out of their van. The doors were taped up, and it was a mess inside the van. And after consultation with Robert, we decided that this van couldn't stay there because our tenants need to use those spaces. And so we put notes on the van, and the van disappeared, and then it came back. One day I came, and there was a guy. I had never seen anybody around this van before, but there was a guy going around the van. And he was talking to himself, and the hood of the van was up, and he seemed very agitated in his movements, and it became clear he was trying to start the van. And I thought about going over and engaging him in conversation, and just to see what was going on, because we had never had a connection with him before. And my feet wouldn't go there. I realized that I was afraid. And it wasn't just fearfulness of the unknown, but it was also fearfulness about the fact that we live in a time when lots of people have guns, and I didn't know if he had a gun or not. And you know, I'm not criticizing myself for not having approached him. It might have been the most skillful thing to do, to have let this guy who was trying to start his van, and ultimately he did, and he left, but it might have been the most skillful thing to do, to simply leave him alone. But I just noticed how scared I was. And it brought home to me the way things are right now, where it seems like fear is pervasive. And I know that that feeling of fear, when I feel it, is part of the reason that I'm here. I am hoping to work through that and relax it. So I just wanted to share that. That's a kind of pain too. So I hope all of you have a really wonderful Sunday full of connection and joy. Blessings to you all.
Well, thank you for being here. two little pieces of other direction before I launch in. One is our Dharma sister Marla is creating an art piece. Everywhere she goes, she drops little art pieces. It's amazing behind her. But she's creating an art piece that you're a part of. And she has cards. Do you need pencils too? We have a whole lot of them in here. On the shelf, watch out going in there, it's a trap. In here, in the secret room. Don't go in the hot tub. And it's what phrase or phrases of the Buddha have you found that really help in your daily in your life, in your spiritual life? Is there something that the Buddha said or that you attribute to the Buddha that you've heard here or you've heard somewhere else that you remind yourself, like all things pass, or whatever it is? I don't want to prime it too much. So whatever it is that you say to yourself that you might find useful, if you want to. Of course, if there isn't something like that, of course you don't have to. She would greatly appreciate it. Marla had a talent night. Marla brought a still life of some fruit that she painted 20 years ago, and it was stunning. It was back in November. We were in New York City for Thanksgiving, and we went to the Met, the Metropolitan Museum, and saw that kind of art. And her art could easily be in. If I'd gone in and said, "Oh, Marla, so and so, France, 1850," it would have fit perfectly. So she will create something of this that will be quite elegant and beautiful. I'm having an inner debate. Should I be patient and do this another time or now? I think I'm not going to be patient. As some of you know, I spent a week at the beach in January and had a lot of deep inner reflection happening. And having to do with my life, having just turned 70, and PIMC. And I wrote a letter to the board and the teachers that I sent to them this week, and there's a couple of pieces of it I'd like to share with you. If we have a founding document other than the Buddha's teachings, it's this little statement from Mr. Rogers. A friend of mine visited a beautiful monastery where a dozen monks, most of whom, have to turn off that. A friend of mine visited a beautiful monastery where a dozen monks, most of whom were in their 70s and 80s, were living. This is a place where once 60 to 70 men spent their lives studying and following a rule of very strict living, praying together 7 times a day, 7 days a week. They worked hard and were successful. My friend asked one of the monks why he felt that over the years the community had dwindled from 60 to 12. His reply was, "We did everything right, and somewhere in all that successful praying and working and living, we lost the most important thing of all, the thing that was so contagious and attracted people to us. We lost the naked love. Little by little, the success replaced the love. Oh, sure, you can have love and success, but the love has to remain first, always first. Natural, affirming, inclusive, naked love. Love and success, always in that order. It's that simple and that difficult." My letter. I believe that we've reached a very important point in the development of the community. We have achieved success. People are coming to the center, learning to practice, facing their demons, opening to love and compassion, becoming more effective in their lives, and making their own unique contributions to the greater culture. There is a natural pull to become bigger, to attract more people, to offer lots of programs, to train more teachers, to have more money. There is so much suffering in the world that there's a pull to create outreach programs and try to fulfill many needs in many niches. I find myself reticent to unconsciously follow this natural, bigger is better trajectory. I am, of course, being affected by the quote from Thomas Merton, which you've heard me read. I turned away from this for almost 20 years to remember it recently. There is a pervasive form of contemporary violence to which the idealist most easily succumbs: activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone and everything, is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our own inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our own work because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful. I believe it's inevitable that PIMC will grow, but I don't think we need to put much effort into that. We cannot save the world, or in fact, save anybody. As a teacher friend put it years ago, samsara is broken and there is no fixing it. Rather than focus on expansion, I invite you to join me in improving the quality of love, connection, depth, and caring among our community members. I would like to continue to make PIMC a place where there is actual awakening. I'd like us to continue to be a place that goes way beyond stress management and psychological well-being to the actual practice of freedom. There are mature students at PIMC who need a way to become more involved. I wonder how they will be part of this opening to connection. I sent this to Avi, and he sent me back a wonderful YouTube link with from Field of Dreams. Build it and he will come. So that's enough of reading this. And then there's another 5 pages. But about things to do, ways to move forward and envision things. Among them is moving myself into the lead teacher and creating an executive director position. So I'll be just teaching. And the reason for that is clear to me. It came clear at the beach, which is that if I am to fulfill my role as remembering that there's a door and sitting by it and helping others through, if I'm stressed, if I'm busy doing what our culture asks us to do, how can I possibly provide the kind of leadership? Because it isn't administrative leadership that we need, it's depth. But then it comes to your part, which is, and we'll be coming to you and asking. And if you have any ideas for me, please let me know, or let any board member know. We had Jim Frew passed away. Some of you knew him. He carried a little oxygen tank. And the community rose up incredibly beautifully and took care of his family when they came in. And we will have among us births, deaths, sickness, catastrophes. And what tends to happen is people disappear. And we don't have to do that. We could actually create community here where we actually really care about each other. Not superficially, hi, how are you? But really, how are you? And how can I be in relationship with you so that we actually build a net of interrelatedness so we notice when someone's missing. I was in Bali 2004, golly, it was 3 weeks after we bought the center. The bombing had happened and the tourism in Bali was down about 80%. And it's a long story, but I was in a taxi and I asked the fellow about that. He said, yeah, it's been really hard. And, and I asked him, does anyone go hungry? And he looked at me like I was a madman. And he said, it's kind of like, are you crazy? He said, we all know, everyone, and if someone doesn't show up for a day, we go find them. And of course we share everything. So we're moving here in a direction of mutuality, and that's very much a part of the Dharma, because if the truth is that we are actually one consciousness, then we will care for each other. And if we practice caring for each other, we are practicing going in the direction of one consciousness. Any moment of love is a moment of moving toward the way things truly are. So with that, I ask for your involvement. For your involvement with me particularly, and with the teachers, and with each other. And the involvement of volunteering. This is your building. This does not belong to me. It's a non-profit. So it means it's ours. And you can support it in a number of ways. Kirsten can put you to work. That's a harsh way to put it, but Kirsten can guide you so that you're able to have the delight of taking care of your place. That's more true, isn't it? And we also, of course, need financial support. We'll be talking with you more about that. We're going to be starting fundraising for the ramp very soon. We have a temporary ramp, interestingly, fantastically, yay! If you know someone who would like to come to PIMC and who has been barred by our stairs, it's now possible to get in. The washrooms are not ADA level accessible at this point, but it's possible to get in. What you should do is call Avi, and we can arrange, because there's a ramp that we need to move. It's not hard to move, but it takes two people, but that's now possible. Yay. And then financially, you can put money in the Dana Bowl back there. You can do a gift online and do it monthly, which is very helpful for budgeting and so on. So it's your place. I invite you to be more and more involved and take the risk. And there is a huge risk. There's an obvious risk, those of us that were burned by childhood religions, that's one. But there's a bigger risk, which is, what if we actually come to care for each other? What if we actually realize that you're important to me? And we take that leap of caring because we know that in the end, it all ends. Right? Every relationship ends in separation or death. And one of the things that we are very adept at as a culture is don't connect. Connect to the TV. Connect to Costco. Connect to the objects. They end too, but it isn't we don't get our hearts broken when the TV breaks. But when our loved one dies or goes in the hospital or betrays us or something, then we do get our hearts broken. And this invitation is, be willing to let your heart break. Because otherwise, life is hardly worth living. Right? This life of autonomy and individuality and non-interbeing, I can take care of myself. So that leads into what I wanted to talk about in terms of the Dharma talk. Just in case you've never noticed, when there's sun and there's cars, there's a reflection from the cars' windshields that makes an extraordinary pattern on the ceiling. I invite you to, it's a beautiful teaching on impermanence. So, this talk on pain and working with pain comes from some recent personal experience. And also, I know several people right now who are working with really big pain. So, here's the personal piece. For the past 10 years, I've been suffering from the growth of my prostate, getting bigger and bigger in that little tiny place and making it more and more difficult to pee, to the point that it was really, really hard. And I was taking, till last Monday, 3 pharmaceuticals, heavy-duty drugs, one of them twice a day, and a huge herbal thing, saw palmetto, and it just kept getting worse and worse because that's what happens. And so finally I bit the bullet, and I had surgery last Monday, which was an incredibly wonderful experience overall. The hospital staff were so caring and competent, and it was amazing. So they went in and they made some space, and the result is actually turning out to be incredible. It was, however, fairly painful. They gave me 20 hydrocodone, 20. I took 3 in the first day and a half, and then the third night, there's a catheter, right, this plastic tube coming out of me, which got to be really quite painful in the middle of the night. And I woke up, and the mood was pretty clear. But the pain was, and this is small p pain, of course, really, compared to real pain. I had kidney stones in India, which I may talk about, which is where I learned about the main lesson of what I want to share with you today. So I couldn't sleep. I got up and sat, and any movement with this catheter going into me was unpleasant. So I got stable, sat, and it stopped being acute. But it was still yucky. And then this thought came up, well, I could work with this. I won't sleep anymore tonight, that was clear. I could just sit here and take the sensations as my meditation object, and the suffering would go down, and it would be fine. But then I thought, they give you these medications because this is hard to deal with, and maybe I'll give myself a break. So I went and I got the narcotic, and I took it and I sat on the couch, and over the next 25 minutes or so I watched as the pain sensations didn't change at all. What changed was, I don't care. I could care less. Why bother? Who cares? I can move around. It's just sensations. That was really interesting to me. It was like equanimity in a little pill. And then I found myself reflecting on, I never saw it so clearly. How about that? And then I started reflecting on this catastrophic epidemic of pain medication. And then it made sense to me. Why not? Of course that's happening. When there's as much pain, physical and emotional, as there is in any culture at any time, but in our culture at this time, when a mere swallowing of a pill will create relief, and particularly if one doesn't have any other really functional strategies other than distraction and shopping and staying busy, then why wouldn't one take these medications and become addicted to them? Now, this was a brief pain that I knew would pass. What about chronic pain? What about the outcome of a car accident or fibromyalgia? Or what about depression? What about anxiety? What about doubt? What about fear? India, 1978. There's a picture, actually, if you have not seen it, over the coffee and cups area. There's a picture of Robert the Ardent. That's under the Bodhi tree. I went to India, and I was determined to get enlightened on that trip. And you see it in his eyes. Well, instead of getting enlightened, I got kidney stones. And I didn't know what they were, and I was 6 or 8 weeks into very intense. I was doing about 16 hours a day of practice, an hour or two sitting, and then an hour or two walking and sitting and walking. And it was out at night, and using a flashlight. And all of a sudden, this incredible pain hit, and I literally fell to the ground. I was like, "Whoa, this is intense." But I had dangerously read a book by the Mahasi Sayadaw on the moment of enlightenment. The great pain may strike. So I lay there for a while, and then I remembered my teacher telling me there are little snakes, a little longer than 12 inches, that are fatal in that part of India. Their bite is fatal. So I thought I better get up. So I got up, and I made my way to my meditation seat in my little house, cement house. And then I sat there in this extraordinary sensation. Oh, powerful. And what happened, I knew that I was ready for the bus, right? Years later, I told this story to Ruth Dennison, and she said, "Oh, darling, whenever you think it's the moment, it isn't." But I was ready for the bus, and then the pain was so great, I had to lie down. I lay down, and I was turning toward the pain and opening to it, and I passed out. And then it was gone when I woke up, and I was so angry at myself. "You stupid. You had the chance for enlightenment, and you fell asleep. So this went on for several days, and there was no medical service in the little village in Bodh Gaya in India. So I wound up disrobing, putting my monk robes away, and I went to Calcutta, and within about 30 seconds in a Western-trained doctor's office, he said, "Ever heard of kidney stones?" So in the end, this stone passed. It was about this big. It had sharp spires. And he made it clear to me how I got it. Because I didn't trust the water, and I was drinking lots of milk, which I did trust because it was boiled, and it was spinach and tomato season. Calcium oxalate. I created in my system a concentrated solution of calcium oxalate that precipitated out this stone. So, what I learned there, and it's a totally counterintuitive approach to pain. What I learned was, if I lay there and turned toward the sensations, rather than trying to get away, if I turned toward them and opened, what would happen is they would get brighter and brighter and clearer and more painful, and then that would continue, and then they would open up into sensations of an unpleasant variety. The mind was saying, "I want to go home, I miss my mommy, am I going to die in India?" But all of that became objects of observation rather than me. And if nobody talked to me, I could be almost suffering free. The slightest irritation, the slightest irritant from outside would plummet me into suffering. And then on day 2, day 3, somewhere, I took some aspirin with codeine, a mild codeine dose, and all hell broke loose because it destroyed my capacity to be objective. It wasn't enough to take me into biochemical, I don't care. So that was very interesting. And that has really served me well personally and professionally. I've taught people in hospice to do that on several occasions. And one fellow in particular, after I taught him, and how did I teach him? I sat with him and I said, I'd like to breathe with you. And I'd like to invite you. He was dying of bone cancer. His spine was exploding from the inside, so serious pain. When I got there, he was doing this. Because they had reduced his medication so he could actually be conscious to meet with me. By the time I left, he was relaxed. And he went, and all I did with him was to say, come back to your body. Though, he was very Catholic, and I have a Catholic childhood. And so I was able to frame it in Catholic terms. And I shared this poem with him. It's from Father Teilhard de Chardin. It's not a poem, it's a little prose piece. When the signs of age begin to mark my body, and still more when they touch my mind, when the ill that is to diminish me or carry me off strikes from without or is born within me, when that painful moment comes in which I suddenly awaken to the fact that I am ill or growing old, and above all, at that last moment when I feel I am losing hold of myself and am absolutely passive within the hands of the great unknown forces that have formed me, in all those dark moments, O God, grant that I may understand that it is you, provided only my faith is strong enough. It is you who are painfully parting the fibers of my being in order to penetrate to the very marrow of my substance and bear me away within yourself. Whew. So I said, these are the fingers of God opening you. Why not pay attention to them? And so I encouraged him, pay attention, and I guided him in there again and again and again, and he went more and more at ease. Now, he was being assisted with a fancy morphine pump, but he had reduced his dose radically, and it stayed reduced from then until his death, because he learned that you can't escape serious pain. So, there's a definition of pain here from dictionary somewhere online. Pain is often a major symptom in many medical conditions and is one of the most cited reasons for seeking medical assistance. Acute pain has a protective function. It motivates us to withdraw from damaging or potentially damaging situations, protects the injured body part while it heals, and avoids those situations in the future. An internationally recognized definition of pain is the International Association for the Study of Pain. Pain is an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual potential tissue damage or described in terms of such damage. And then another definition. Pain is whatever the experiencing person says it is, existing whenever the experiencing person says it does. I heard a very interesting, touching story on NPR the other day. A woman who had endometriosis and extreme pain, and she was dismissed by physicians for several years until finally it became clear what was happening. And why would we dismiss someone in such pain? If my job is to, quote, help people with pain or take away their pain, and I can't, I'm failing. So rather than realize, I don't know, and rather than failing, we make the other person wrong. You're not having that experience. So, we are born into bodies that are capable of extraordinary pleasure and extraordinary pain. We are undefended. We have no armor, physical armor. You can break a bone, you can fall down the stairs, you can cut yourself, there's so many ways that we can and do injure ourselves. And at any heartbeat, from accident or from something happening in the body, everything can change. The Buddha spoke of dukkha, suffering, coming in these packages: birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. And they are fraught with things going wrong. And they do. This prostate thing for me is not a pathological condition, blessedly. It's just what happens as a man's body gets older, and not so many years ago, certainly 100 years ago, it would have killed me 10 years ago. Because I wouldn't have been able to get rid of urine, and backs up into the kidneys, and off we go. So, there's another 4 categories that the Buddha spoke of as dukkha, suffering, unsatisfactoriness. Having experiences you don't want to have. Pain. Discomfort. Not having experiences you do want to have. I want. Being with person or persons you don't want to be with. Having a political circumstance which is not what you want to be having. Persons in power who you might not want to be in power. And then not being with the person or person not being with your beloved. So there's these opportunities that we have. The world is intruding and I have a bad cut on my hand. Or the world is intruding and there's an experience I don't want to be having, a mood I don't want to be having, a body sensation I don't want to be having, well, that's enough. So, having experiences we don't want to have, not having the ones we do want to have, being with people or persons we don't want, and not being with person or persons. We can our primary strategy is to get away from discomfort. And that's really good, because if I stick my hand in a fire, I need to get away from it. I just remembered with both of my children, we blessedly had my mother-in-law living in an apartment downstairs for the first 17 years of their lives. And she heated with a wood stove. And we set up an unpleasant moment for each of them, in that when they were toddlering, we created a mild fire in the stove, and we let them touch the stove. They went toward it, and they didn't get the message, and they touched the stove, and it was a moment of big deal. Ah! They never touched the stove again, when they would have gotten really badly burned sometime. So we used their natural wisdom that came from, this feels bad. So similarly, we're drawn towards certain smells and certain tastes. One of the problems with sugar is that we really like sugar, and in our original days, first 99.99% of our time, we didn't have concentrated sugars. So we don't know what to do when we run into sugar. We just want more of it. I know my first time in Nepal back in 1971, the children would line up in the villages as we hiked through, and they'd say, "Chine, chine, chine," sugar, sugar, candy, candy. The last time I was there, which was in 79, 89, they were the pen tribe. It was pen, pen, can I have a pen? Have a pen? So, it's very natural to move away from pain, and important, crucial, and to move toward pleasure. We wouldn't be here if there weren't the desire for pleasure around sexuality, right? It's a force that draws people together in order to pass on the DNA. But, oh no, there's one more layer. The particular trance in which we live, as a culture, and more cultures as we move into modernity. There's a particular trance that we are caught in, which is the trance of consumerist materialism. And that trance is based in a lie. And the lie is, if you get enough goods, if you get enough positive stimulation, and you can avoid unpleasant, then you'll be happy. And 6 and 10,000 square foot houses filled with plastic art don't make people happy. The fanciest vacations ever don't really make us happy, not enduringly. And we're deeply embedded in the notion that we've got to get more. Right? I think I'll just go browse at Costco, or maybe browse. One of the things, really remarkable things we do, is we've lost track of the fact that wanting something is unpleasant, and so we actually shop. We go and look at things because we think we mistake that discomfort for pleasure. So we are, because we have this belief, we become less and less capable of accepting discomfort. It's one of the wonderful things about Outward Bound and programs like that I did a winter expedition into Yellowstone back in my 20s. We slept out at 48 below. It was great. 48 below. It was 48 below. That's not wind chill. That was really 48 below zero. And it warmed up into the 20s at the end of the trip. We all had our shirts off. It's like, oh boy, it's hot here. But those kind of trips make one realize, I don't even have to be particularly warm. I need to be well enough fed, but I can be happy with much less. Different thoughts coming in. Some years ago, I had a friend who had spent 2 years living among the very, very poor Tibetans in Kathmandu. And he took about 100 just facial close-ups of these beautiful people, and they were all smiling. And the title of the book that he printed was, "Who are these people and why are they smiling?" By our standards, they had nothing. Why were they smiling? I have dear friends who spent 10 days in Cuba recently, and their report from Cuba was incredibly happy, music everywhere, and committed community. Absolutely alive, not at all what the fantasy is here in our world. They don't have a lot of material things. My friend wrote, there's the smell of decaying infrastructure everywhere. Everything's falling apart. But why are they happy? Well, they're connecting with each other and they're accepting things. So, got to get on to the task. What if we were to challenge the worldview that I have to get away from pain and I have to seek pleasure at all costs? What if I decided I'm going to sit here in meditation and if it starts hurting, instead of going away, I will go in. I'll notice, knee hurting. Hurting, back to the breath. Hurting, back to the breath. Hurting, back to the breath. I want to move. This isn't right. I'm getting restless now. I don't like it. Why doesn't he ring the bell? Hurting. Is this hurting damaging my body? No. One rule to go by is if you get up from meditation and within 15 seconds or so it's gone, it's not hurting you. And sometimes in meditation, we face extraordinarily severe pain. Sometimes pain arises in meditation that is psychogenic. It's not really physical pain. It's something working its way through, and it can be, one can wonder at times, am I having a heart attack? Or is this pain in my back it's just so almost unbearable. What happens if I pay attention to it? So we use the concentration that we've developed on the breath and the capacity of mindfulness and the capacity of patience and curiosity, and we turn toward the pain, the sensations that we call pain, and then we relinquish the word pain, because that's just an idea, right? And we can say, oh, I have so much pain, I don't like it. Well, in French it's douleur, le douleur. So that clearly it's not the word. So then we let go of that, and then we go deeper and deeper and deeper into the sensations. And then we discover that we can do that, and then there gets kind of like a tractor beam, and with significant pain, it really draws the mind anyway. And many people experience their first moments of really intense concentration and meditation to be around severe pain, because the mind gets riveted there. And then as we go in further and further, it's as though we were going in with an electron microscope, and it starts opening up, and we realize there's nothing solid here. Nerves charge and fire, charge and fire. So pain isn't a solid thing. It's a scintillating mass of sensations. And the more attentive and precise we can be, the more that starts happening. And then, and this was the utter genius of the Buddha, the first thing he taught. Then we notice, and then you can also notice the mind. The mind is doing its fear and its story making. Asterisk, don't lose your spot. The same thing that we can do with physical pain, we can do with emotional pain, like depression or grief. They have a body base. You can find them in your body and pay attention there. Or anxiety. So rather than trying to get away from it, we turn toward it, and we open and we open. And we discover that anxiety and depression, there's thoughts, there's emotion, there's body sensations, and they are actually impersonal. It's like weather. So, the first, being willing and able to turn toward pain like this and actually experience it, to bear it like a wagon bears a load, is the first step of spiritual practice. And then we learn, as we learn how to do that some, and we get more and more adept at it, and then we can be not so involved in distraction. I should mention addictions and compulsions, right, which are all about avoiding pain. So I learned how to stay sober, how to stay conscious, how to stay non-distracted, and turn toward the pain, the suffering that I'm experiencing. When I can do that, it opens up the door to freedom, because then with that and with this quality, incredible quality of mind that we're developing, I can look for what's causing all this resistance, what's causing all this struggle, what's causing the suffering here, and we begin to discover, well, it's non-acceptance. It's the mind saying, I don't accept this. I will not feel this, damn it. This is not right. And then it's my parents' fault, or it's the government's fault, or it's somebody's fault. And we get lost in some story about it should be different. Well, it isn't different. This pain in my knee, heart, whatever, is actually here now. So then with the stability of being able to be with it, then we start looking, and this is the second noble truth. That the suffering is separate from the pain, and it's the second noble truth, which is craving. I want pleasure, I want less pain, or I want to become something different. I want this moment to be different than it is. That is actually what's causing the suffering. That's to realize that and be able to practice that even on small things is life-changing. So then if I can do that, if I can learn to bear the suffering, to simplify, sober up, become clear, cease resisting, cease avoiding feeling it even, then I can notice the resistance. then something miraculous happens, which the Buddha called nirvana. And nirvana is probably the single most misunderstood concept in Buddhism. It's not, ta-da, here I am, I'm in another world and everything's okay. It's the moment when enough consciousness arises, enough compassion and warmth of heart that we can be aware of this, and this craving thing somehow stops. And there is radical acceptance. This moment is like this. My heart is broken. I'm sobbing, and this loss is of huge magnitude, and it's really fine. Because this is the nature of human life. Loved ones disappear. Loved ones betray us. Loved ones get sick. I get sick. My body, quote, betrays me. It will get sick and die. And so by turning, it's this whole thing of turning toward, opening, and then observing the craving. The unenforceable rules is another way. We have unenforceable rules about life. I shouldn't be getting sick. This pain shouldn't exist. Well, they do exist. They do exist, and can I turn toward them and bear them consciously enough that in fact the suffering stops? The short, destructive, dangerous route to that is substances. Like I used on Wednesday night. The long-term healing, liberating approach is meditation. And this Teilhard de Chardin quote, I mean, he says it differently, but, "O God, grant that I may understand that it is you, provided only my faith is strong enough, who are painfully parting the fibers of my being in order to penetrate to the very marrow of my substance and bear me away within yourself." What interesting, difficult language to really make sense of in a way, but it's the same practice, right? It's, this pain, this suffering, this is not an anomaly. This is normal. This is the price for having a body. This is the price for entering into relationship. And since I really want to be fully alive, I want to sign on and be willing to suffer the pain as completely as I can. And in grieving, when a great loss happens, if we turn toward it and we grieve it fully and we open, then the grief actually passes away because it's a natural phenomenon. And we don't wind up 5 years or 10 years later still caught up in something. We still have the pain and maybe the sense of loss, but we've moved on into a fullness of life. So the strategy is turn toward. On the PIMC website, if you go to guided meditations and scan down through them, there's one that's called Dissolving Pain, and another, the one right below it, I forget what it's named. Those are the guided meditations for use with pain. The one time we looked some years ago, they're the most used links on the website, because back on, circumstances were such 3 or 4 times a year, I taught large groups of physicians, and I would give them that for use with their people who had pain, and who doesn't, of course. So I encourage you, if you're having pain, go and listen to that, because it will put into practice this strategy that I just described. I guess one more thing. The kids are in the chute. Vedana. I guess that's it. Please, this is an invitation to ourselves to grow up. To realize that we cannot escape the astounding pain of being in a human body. Unless we want to not be alive, in which case we can, and we can become great consumers and wonderful addicts, and we can avoid caring, we can avoid committing, and that's the norm. So the option is to become really alive and to really connect with ourselves and therefore with others, and then the love starts opening up, and we discover that we live in a sea of love, because that's who we are when we aren't in our contracted little frightened, I got to take care of myself. And the tragic results of I've got to take care of myself when it starts acting out politically and globally, and it's exactly the opposite direction from our grand opportunity, which is to move into more and more love, which means we accept things as they are. Well, thank you for listening. I hope you'll give this a try. Start with small pains. When you're sitting in meditation, stay sitting. Oh, I hate this. Oh, there's the mind telling a story. I gotta move. Okay. And make the commitment. Practice every day for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, and actually do it. I don't want to do this today. Too bad. Right? Grow up. To it. Speaking to oneself. It's like, grow up. This is, you know how good this is. Quit avoiding it. All right. Thank you, dear friends. Please let's make a big circle and welcome the kids, and we'll do our closing ritual. And thank you, dear friends at home, out in the television viewing audience. Oh, and the potluck. Don't forget there's potluck. And please return your cards somewhere. I'm not sure where. Okay. Kirsten has a place, a spot. Oh. Okay. Here we are. May I hold your hand? Thank you. May I hold your hand? Guess not, huh? All right. How about if I hold your foot? There we go. Is that good? All right. So, this little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy had roast beef. This little piggy had none. This little piggy went... Do you know this one? No? Oh, well. Little piggy goes wee, 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 all... That's right. Thank you. Great. So, let us squeeze. Give a little squeeze to the foot or hand on your right hand. Why not wish a kind thought to this person? Which, of course, blesses yourself with a mind that thinks kind thoughts. And then to the hand on your left, connected to another person, another piece of yourself, posing as another person. Why not wish them well? And around your circle, the inner circle here, the outer circle, and realizing that our circles are connected to everyone on the planet. We are the planet standing or sitting here. We are the earth dancing. And let's include all of our brothers and sisters of the air, the earth, and the waters. Our brothers and sisters with wings, with hooves, with gills. We're all in this together, flashing through in a brief lifetime. So we can relax. We can relax and love each other and really belong. And now comes the sacred chant. All right. Beings be happy, May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Fantastic, thank you. Well, and now the ancient ritual of making a wish. Everyone in the room gets to make a wish. And then we all take in a giant deep breath, and on the proper count, we'll blow out the candle. What if he doesn't start counting? We'll explode. 1, 2, 3, blow. Go, 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 go. Yes, yes. Fantastic. Thank you, dear friends. Please join us in the living room for some pleasure of connecting with each other and having some good food. Hey, did you have fun? Did you have a good time?
Yeah.
Good.